Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about anti-patterns. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what can help our developers recover from anti-patterns? So this is sort of the thing that I always it touches on the thing that I believe is one of, well, it's not the root of what I believe needs to happen for human society to take it to the next level, but it is the reason why I believe this is very difficult, because the problem with recovering from antipattern, depending on how you look at it, let's see, I'm not sure what you mean. Are you talking about recovering from an existing anti-pattern you've already invested into it, or is it that you have a tendency to use them, if that makes sense? Because if we look at it as you have a tendency to use them, then it sort of falls into the bucket, as I was sort of my thought thread that I started. Uh, that is like asking a person who knows nothing to have experience that they don't have. Uh, it's nobody holds a child accountable 100% for their actions, not because they're not accountable per se, but it is that there's no way for you to be born with wisdom, if that makes sense. Well, like, this is what I argue. I believe, like, wisdom is the end goal of experience and intelligence, or like it is the product of what you get when you have both. I hope, at the very least. That's the way I think about it, at the very least. And using an anti-pattern and knowing how to not use them sort of comes down to that exact thing. You have to fuck up, or you have to do things and then observe how things went, and then reflect and live through some stuff, and then you can see how to not use anti-patterns. Usually what I say to people is that the pain of living with your choices, or even, like, if there's another way as well, honest feedback, is also a very good way for you to figure out if something is working out or something's not working out so well. And my personal like, if we're going to look at it from that perspective, my personal suggestion is that people always have this idea where you fundamentally ask the question, how much impact is the thing I'm about to do going to have, perceivably, before you do it? So an example, if you're going to make a story that is just for you, then you can take greater risk. But the more people that get affected, so let's say you make a decision on changing a programming language or a framework or whatever, right? The bigger the investment, the bigger the thing you're going to do, and the more people involved, the more important it is for you to do a controlled experiment, a proof of concept, and basically treat things as a scientist or like an engineer or someone would do, which is through experimentation and proof of concept, and then gradually rolling out and increasing the investment. I will incidentally argue that that is the same way we would need to run politics in order to solve a lot of the problems we have today, but that's probably not going to happen. Well, not in the way that this would be necessary. But the other way of looking at it is, okay, so you now have invested in an anti-pattern, how do you recover from it? Well, then we come to basically the same sort of problem as legacy code. How do you recover from legacy code once you have invested in it? Well, that's impossible for me to say for many reasons. The main one being that it always depends on how you recover. There are a few strategies, of course, that you can use. I have techniques such as, introducing a test coverage, or things like that, or doing like gradual migrations with proxies, etc., etc. There are many ways to do it, but it very much depends on the specific anti-pattern you're using or so forth. And so I will take the simple answer and say that you need to discuss it with your coworkers in the team and look at, alright, what investment have you made and what are feasible ways for you to solve that problem. And each case will be different, honestly. And it brings us back to the thing I was saying earlier. The problem with even undoing an anti-pattern also comes back to experience and wisdom. You see that there's a problem here, you see that there's pain involved, but how do you know that it's an anti-pattern, and how do you know that you're going to end up in a better place than you started? It's food for thought. I've been let's just say I have had many projects where people have gone from a bad situation to a worse situation because they figured out that something was ugly, something wasn't so good, and then they went in and tried to solve it, and they actually just made the whole thing even worse. Well, quote unquote worse. Which is, as I said, that's the tricky part, right? How do you act with wisdom when you have none? How do you get it before you've already made the mistakes that you can't undo? It's a tricky philosophical question. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way that I at the very least try to help developers recover from anti-patterns is to first and foremost ask the question, why do you want to do this thing? How much impact is it going to have on the people around you? And even if I don't believe in it or so forth and so forth, my thinking is always the same. I need to have a situation where the cost of failure is very, very low. And the more people involved, such as if you're building something for an entire team or maybe an entire company or so forth and so forth, you have to allow people to opt in and opt out, or actually make controlled experiments where you gradually grow the rollout or the investment into the concept. You can't just create a situation where you can't, like, where everybody's forced to use the thing until you've proven its value and use for the people who want to use it or whatever you're doing, right? That's how I believe things should be made always. Make sure that it's only a investment that is appropriate, that is necessary, and that the cost of undoing or removing the investment, if it doesn't work out, is very low. Give everything an undo button. Exactly. Give everything an undo button. That's a very good good way of thinking about it. And the other way of looking at it is you've already made the investment, and if that is the case, you're going to have to take a look at the specific case that you're dealing with and how you can migrate away from the problem. And reality is that you will have to discuss that amongst yourselves in your software team, and if anything comes close to me answering that question, it's in the answers I give in all of these videos, because this is an experience type of deal where there are tips that I can give you for very specific cases, but like answering it at a higher level like this is basically impossible to do in one sitting. It's a lifetime of experience that answers that question. Have a great day.